Hey everybody, it's Kentario. I'm back again with Christ and comic books. I told you guys I was going to be doing a video every day. That is not an easy thing to do. With everything on the plate, everything trying to get done, and the new year's coming into it, and you're trying to change your thought process about things, and you're trying to make sure that you're not forgetting about the work that still needs to be done. I mean, I'm here now at the church ready to get some more work put in, and along with everything else that I'm having to do, that's a heavy plate to have to endure. But I'm still committed. I said I'm going to do it. I'm going to push in to actually do it. And for the first day of January, I want to actually let you guys know that I finally finished the book of Exodus. Okay, so I'll tell you that last year I had set the goal within myself to try and read, the Bible within the year. I only was able to read Genesis and Exodus. I just finished Exodus today. That was completely difficult. Mainly because I got stuck in Exodus. I got stuck in Exodus. It was a lot of details to, establishing the children of Israel in the essence of them being obedient to God and establishing the covenant, building the tabernacle, having everything in place that was needed, candles, vessels, tents, cloths, the type of cloths, the color for everything, choosing people to be in charge of all of those things. And it's just a lot of grave detail, almost like trying to read off the blueprint for a building being made. It's kind of hard to read, kind of thing. That's really what it was. So I kept having to find myself rereading the same chapter over and over again, doubling back to see if I could retain what it was I was reading. So it got extremely tedious and extremely exhausting. But no matter what, I always found something within Exodus as I was reading, yet still, and even in the tough points, something of value there that I want to kind of bring into today's video. Because this really ties into, committing to what you're going to do, pushing to do it, and even if you don't fulfill it, what you have fulfilled, be proud of it. And so I'm proud that I got to finish it, and I'm proud of what I found in reading it. So, and what I found in reading the harder portions of it, you're getting again, like I said, the covenant, the tabernacles. They're even getting the children of Israel, the different families selected out for different positions, who would be in charge of what land, or who would be in charge of what, who would be managing what, who's responsible for this and that. And you have, particularly, at least in the focus of this video, you have Aaron and the Levites being selected to be in charge over the temple, being in charge of the tabernacle itself, being in the presence of God. That was their responsibility. And you're hearing about how their outfits would be designed, being bedazzled in jewelry and certain rubies and certain aspects, and what parts would be, what wouldn't be, them being anointed, making sure that they are set apart, sanctified for what they were going to be doing. And, this was the last bit of what was being finished up on in chapter 40. And as I was reading that, it was just like, it kept doubling back to me. It wasn't that Aaron necessarily was gifted or empowered to, or even driven to do what he was coming into this position to do, him or the Levites. They were chosen by God to do this thing, and also empowered by God to fulfill that position. So the thing about that is that what that really brings to mind is the gifting, the empowering, the charge on someone's life to do great things isn't something necessarily of themselves. It's something that they have to, a call that they have to accept and to press into if they're looking to really be that difference maker, at least in the realm of their position. So with him being called, he had nothing to gloat about. He had nothing to boast about. There was no big game that he could talk in the presence of the other children of Israel. This was something that he had to be very careful with, do the right thing, because he was going to be in the presence of God. He was going to be watched by God. He was going to be being developed by God in this role, and he had to make sure he did it right. In the future, there are several instances where the role that he has is so, what's the right word to use there, is so delicate that it costs some people their lives to mistreat it, to do wrong by it. and even plays a certain level of part in the fall of Israel itself, to where the people were put into slavery, subservient to other leaderships and other cultures. And even more so, you see, of course, again, it's evident that their fall led to the children of Israel not advancing at the level that they could have, even more so at the level that God wanted them to be at. But even more so, as we know, everything's a part of God's plan, so we still have to trust in what took place. So with that, with them having fallen by the wayside and taking hold of everything that they were capable of doing as if it was them, you notice that there's an absence of God when the mindset is that, okay, this is of me. I am capable of this. I should be reverenced for this. That's where you see God becoming absent in that. And the people are only reverencing that because that's their understanding of even being in that position, is that it is a high elevated position to be called to. But it's a high position of responsibility as well. So that's where that balance kind of becomes a little shaken there. I even think about Moses. Moses wasn't necessarily qualified. Moses wasn't necessarily gifted to be able to do the things that he did, per se. I mean, there are instances where the character of leadership is present within him, that urgency to be able to, do the right thing for his people. That energy was there, but all of that, one, had to be channeled. Two, he had to be equipped to be able to do all of these things that he was being called to do, all of these things that he felt that he needed to fulfill, or the things that he's been called to fulfill by God when he came to him at the burning bush. When you listen to that instance, you notice the unworth in the way that he was speaking. I'm this, I'm that, I stutter over my words, I killed someone, the people hate me, I don't have any powers, how am I going to do this? He had all the excuses of the world. But it was really speaking to the unworth that was evident within him. So with that, you see that a lot today, that there's a lot of recognition to the unworth of every person in the world, especially since we've fallen away from God. I've done a lot of thinking on this, at least especially today, when we think about that falling away, but trying to become great even in the midst of our falling away. That allows for us, when we recognize our unworth, yet we press. That us pressing, what is it that we're working towards, the goals that we're trying to reach, isn't because we are this almighty person capable of doing so. It's one of the factors that plays into, celebrities and their rise and fall in the midst of their stardom. They're rising because they're harnessing what they're capable of and applying it with the way that the world has been established for them to be successful. But because people are seeing it as, oh, that person did a great thing, which they did, but there's still fault to them. So when they actually do have a fault, they're held accountable to that fault, not simply because of what is impacted because they fell, but they are held to that simply because they're being recognized as the great one that got them there anyway. So they almost are as if trying to put them in a God position just to say that they're not worthy of being called God in the first place. And we do that a lot. We do that one to another. And even worse, we do that when it comes to talking about God himself. We elevate him just to, quote unquote, watch him fall. But we do that by looking at each other and pointing out our faults. We do that by trying to hide that we are faulted and then fall, and then try and make excuses for our falling. Even more so, trying to hide the fact that we fall. So in that deception, we take away the gifting. We take away the power, and we destroy the ability to fulfill what we have been called to do. You see a lot of that worth being called on to heroism, because when you see heroes like Iron Man, when you see heroes like Thor, when you see heroes like Captain America, it wasn't as if they weren't necessarily called to their heroism. They weren't necessarily picked out. They weren't necessarily equipped specifically to be a hero. They had to make the decision to do the right thing, to be a hero. But here's what was crazy. I pointed this out in prior videos, but here's what's crazy about that is fans got tired of the, coming in, we're saving the day, this is it, we did it. And so they had to bring about a level of fault to each character, a level of limitation to each character. You find with Captain America that he could lose against, a governmental figure. He's lost to Red Skull in certain occasions. He's lost to to Hydra in certain aspects. Iron Man determining, now this isn't a strong one, but it is important. With Iron Man, he fell to alcoholism. With Thor, there was a maintaining that worth to himself. I believe that the actual Marvel Cinematic Universe did a great job of capturing that about Thor, is that Thor was a big-headed person. It didn't make him a hero that he could do what he did. What made him a hero was that character transformation, that he had to be cautious of what it is that actually made him worthy. It was all in how he carried himself in being equipped with the power that he possessed. That's a great example to go by, actually, when speaking to that. So when we're looking at, even heroes and how they are being reverenced, how they are being looked at, there's an accountability that plays into the role that they play. There's accountability that plays into their character in their stories. There's an accountability, people, to each and every one of us, that even if we are able to point out things that make us unqualified, there was a sacrifice that took place by the only worthy sacrifice, a worthy sacrifice that intentionally had to make himself in our image. Oh man, that's crazy. We were made in the image of God, but then we fell, which led to us being separated from God, hindering our worth. So then God had to send one, his only son, someone, and make him, in a sense of unworth, make him replicate that unworth, so that it's evident in the world that even in the midst of that unworth, what we're capable in the midst of that. How we need to carry ourselves in the midst of our unworth, how we need to behave, how we need to check one another, how we need to love one another, how we need to put ourselves on the line for one another, so that we can become the great that we have been called to be. That's such a very important thing to definitely point out. And I thank you guys, for listening. I wanted to just do this a little simple here today, and I hope that this has been a blessing. I know that I also already talked yesterday, speaking on Spider-Man and Superman and their differences, and my passions and my interest in them. Tomorrow, I'm looking to actually do another more biblical message as well. This particular biblical message that I'm looking to do tomorrow is going to be about us being separated from God. Us being separated from God. And I'm hoping that, not just the Christian friends are watching this, but those that, have, their opinion of God, those that have their view of God, those that have their questions, their concerns about God. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to see you watching these things. And I'd love to actually sit down and have conversations about this with you, because this is important. Because you're not the only ones that have to look at yourself and wonder about what you're capable of, wondering who you are in this world, wondering what difference you're going to make, even outside of whether or not you believe in God, as, Christians and other believers do. So I just want you to know that I'm here to talk, and I'm here to listen as well. Thank you guys. Y'all have a blessed one.